am Reza Shah, and I was an Iranian leader in the 20th century. I was born on March 15, 1878, in the city of Alast, a city with a population of around 1,000 people. Growing up, I lived with my mom. When I was a teenager in 1893, I joined the Cossack Brigade, and I became proficient in military tactics and worked my way up the ranks until I became a first lieutenant and later a captain. In 1915, my success had made me better known and led me to rise to the rank of colonel. In my 20s, I helped expel the Russians from Iran, and I also helped overthrow the government and was placed to power for this. I became monarch after Ahmed Shah left. He ruled from December 15, 1925 to April 24, 1926, when I took over. I came to power during deep social and political chaos with a weakening economy in Iran. The government lacked stability and democracy in any form. The Qajar dynasty ruled before me. The Qajar left the Persian nation in a state of instability before I and the British took over. During World War I, the Soviets encouraged the Jengali guerrilla movement to fight against the central Iranian government. The Russian-backed guerrilla movement rose to power in the area, but they quickly lost power due to ideological differences within the Russian communists. After this fallout, I organized the Cossack Brigade and seized power. I aligned myself with Saeed Zika al-Din, a pro-British intellect, to stage a coup in 1921. The Qajar side maintained its title as shown, and actual power was given to Tabatabai. I was a minister and the commander of the army. Me and my government signed a treaty with the Soviets, allowing them to invade Iran if national security was threatened. This allowed the Soviets to invade Iran, to dethrone the Qajar, and promote me to power. I also allied myself with the Soviets and my new government. During this time, the Brits did not focus on Iran because they had other problems to deal with in India. Me and my regiment got rid of foreign-influenced political parties, and I also established a central government to control all of Iran. Once I came to power, I was not favored by everyone, but I was favored by, especially not my initial followers, because the switch from favoring a more constitutional government into favoring a monarch, because there was still a base of people that liked monarchs better rather than the clean slate that they had in Turkey. Nobody could do anything about it because of my militaristic control. My main focus was modernization and secularization. I followed the Turkish modernist movement led by Ataturk, especially feeling inspired after my 1934 visit. I wanted to be similar to Turkey, but I did not have quite the slate to start with. I envisioned a republic, but the clerics and traditional landlords did not support that type of government. I still had to recognize people living in this country and follow some of their wishes. I set the base for future success of Iran. I improved infrastructure and created the Trans-Iranian Railway. My infrastructure plan may have seemed good for Iran, but it was not carried out well. The railway was completely financed by Iran, so it put some of the more important infrastructure improvements on the back burner. The new infrastructure may have created more jobs, but is also controlled by the central government. There was less strict oversight, so poor job conditions and corruption happened as a result. I also tried to disassemble any organized worker groups. I established an airline and industrial endeavors on the base of oil revenue. I secularized education and set up the University of Tehran. I did not only secularize schools, but I also tried to expand religious schools. I cared more for education rather than the division of secular and religious education. I also vastly improved healthcare. I also created a code similar to Napoleonic Code. I did not make women wear veils, and men did not have to wear turbans. I established smaller pieces of land to govern, creating a stronger local government that communicated with the newly expanded central government's bureaucracy. I also expanded the government and continued conscription. I secularized the court system by creating civil courts and abolishing religious powers that would reign supreme over state powers. I also created a strong sense of modern nationalism, which was popular at the time. I changed the name of the nation from Persian to Iran. I also created a scouting movement for children to celebrate Iranian heritage. Different from Ataturk, I favor religion for the unifying power that came from it. Under my rule, oil was the main source of revenue. However, Britain had most of the control over our oil. In 1932, I tried to create a new agreement with the Brits, but they refused. However, I was a smart ruler, and I used my leverage against the Brits. I used my relationship with the Soviets to sway the Brits. As the disagreements continued, the British worried because they'd lose favor with the Iranians and therefore profits as well as international influence. A new deal was struck, and we got a higher percentage of the money from our oil, and the British retained their monopoly on Iranian oil. I tried to get a third power involved in Iran's affairs, and that part was the USA, because the United States was distant and less an immediate threat to control of Iran. The USA declined the offer, but I kept pushing to try and grant the American oil companies access. But then the Soviets had to be granted the same access, and thus a new deal was never made with the Americans. I was also in good positioning with the Germans, who helped Iran with more skilled workers. By the time World War II broke out, I declared Iran neutral, but this did not turn out well for me. Iran was invaded by the British and the Soviets to stop the Germans from gaining British and Soviet oil. During this occupation, I was dethroned and sent into exile in Africa, and my son took my throne. Soon, I would die in Africa.
Reza Shah, he'll make you go, huh? Worked his way through the day to rise up the ranks where he would stay. To modernize was his goal, but it wasn't done by coal, it was liquid gold. For the royal, it was Iranian oil. He was smart, by the way, made the Brits give away 20% oil profit. Do you think you could top it? He had the grit to deal with Great Brit, used the Soviets to get his pay. But his crown came crashing down. After the Second World War, he was exiled to the African shore. Guess 20 years was all he was good for.